My name is Willy Bolander. I study influence, persuasion, and leadership in selling and sales management, and I teach people how to sell. In this podcast, we'll talk to some of the world's top sales leaders and see what we can learn from them. Welcome to the Sales Lab. All right, we are here with Jason Koshy with Infinite Electronics, and we are going to learn everything there is to know about his industry and his company. Jason, thank you for being with us.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me on.
And let's start with you. How about that? Who are you and where did you come from and how did you get where you are today?
Well, I've been in the sales side of technical sales over 28 years, so it's been a long road. I actually started my career more in a operations role than anything else. But so I'm in Tampa. I'm an electrical engineer. I graduated from the University of South Florida with an electrical engineering degree, really focusing on RF. That was kind of my area. We had a family business that did a lot of RF solutions. It was a company owned by my uncle. So my thought always was, hey, I'm going to wind up there at some point. And so he did RF, and that's kind of where, I started my curriculum and studies. By the time I got done and, graduated, I took a lot of interest into power. And so my background after my formal education really was focused around power quality, and really kind of broadened from there, and really enjoy the power side of technical sales. So my career, like I said, started in operations at a family-owned business, which was part of what my uncle had. Was he had a machine shop, CNC lathes, milling, and then also RF solutions, 2-channel combiners, telecommunication, military type stuff. So I ran a machine shop and really made the housing for his business. And that's really kind of how I got my feet wet into my professional career.
This content is brought to you by the TIES Sales Showdown. That's the Technical, Industrial, and Engineering Student Sales Showdown, hosted right here at Texas A&M University. We have over 200 engineering students taking sales classes every semester and a growing minor program in technical sales. These students are smart enough for STEM and savvy enough for sales, and the TIES Showdown allows them to demonstrate their selling skills in a role-play competition where industry partners, like you, serve as judges and provide them coaching feedback. If you're hiring for technical, industrial, or engineering sales roles anytime in the next couple of years, this is an event you can't miss. You can learn more at tx.ag/TIES. That's tx.ag/TIES. Hope you can join us. How long before you found yourself in a sales role?
Yeah, so the sales part of it's kind of interesting. I decided working for family was great, but I needed to kind of broaden my experience, and so left the family business and took a substantially lower position than me running a operations into a sales application engineer. So there's a company local here in Tampa. They need an application engineer. A buddy of mine that I had graduated with engineering was at a job fair, and I bumped into him. And he's like, hey, we got an opening for an application engineer. And I was like, wow, that sounds great. No stress, no employees to manage, no schedules to meet. I'll just do easy, right? And so that's really kind of how I started my career, really as an application engineer, supporting technical questions on surge protection. And that was, interesting because you've got residential customers, you got commercial, you've got industrial, surge protection, as you can imagine. Anywhere there's AC and copper, there's an opportunity for surge protection. So we had a broad market experience. And so I did technical support for a long time and really enjoyed it. That really led into an accidental sales call. So there was a company in Massachusetts that created switchgear. They were making it for the hospitals, and they had a big issue with our products not working in their system. And so they asked me, hey, Jason, we've got these problems, we want you to come out here. So I talked to my boss at the time and said, hey, look, these guys got a problem. They got to get the switchgear out. There's a hospital that's down. So literally I flew up that day, met them the very next morning and resolved their issue, and went out to lunch with them. And it was a really great experience. Didn't think anything of it. I came back home, and literally the next day, the president of the company called my president and told him, hey, look, we want Jason to be our sales guy and tech support. So you can imagine there's some sales guy who's unhappy. And then, my president's calling me and saying, hey, what did you do? Why did you take this account from the sales guy? And I'm like, I didn't do anything. I just fixed a problem, had lunch, and came back. And so I inherited the third largest account in our company because of that at the time. And it was kind of one of those things. And I always said, look, I'm an engineer. I will never sell. I'm not a sales guy. And I envisioned it knocking on doors and, a lot of calls that, wasn't going to be fruitful. And it, from being an engineer, it felt like honestly a step down. And that was really in my mindset when I started even considering sales. Like, that's not me. I studied engineering, and not that sales is a bad career, but it was just like, I'm an engineer. That's not what I do, kind of a mindset.
Yeah. And so, did something change your mind then? Or are you just living in this terrible, torturous existence of...
So it's a great question. So about a month and a half later, I get an extra check, and had no idea. And they were like, hey, this is your commission check for your customer that you helped. And I'm like, a commission check? What's that? And that really was like, oh, well, had just finished college, just took a job that pays less, could use that for student loans. And I'm like, okay. So they were asking me for months, hey, do you want to do sales? Do you want to do a little more sales activity? And I just kept saying, no, I'll manage this one customer and that's it. And then I just kind of saw an opportunity to make more money. That's really why I got into it. And so I took over the Southeast. There was an opening for the Southeast, and I went from technical, supporting some operational stuff with quality, doing some work with, manufacturing improvements, to completely switching into sales. And I really think, that transition happens, really with good mentors, especially back then, right? There weren't really any programs. You were just kind of a salesperson, and, really even technical sales. There really was, salespeople, and then there were engineers. And so a sales guy would bring an engineer in. So I would travel with the sales guy once in a while to help with a customer, but really wasn't a technical salesperson, kind of a merger of that. There wasn't a lot of that. I mean, there happened to be some people that went into sales over time, but, never saw a posting for a technical outside sales guy, mostly like regional managers, inside sales, outside sales. And, oh, by the way, we need an application engineer, or we need a solutions architect, kind of an engineer to, help all our products integrated with customers. So you kind of had, at least back then, quite a division between sales and technical.
Yeah. And when I'm having these conversations with people in different industries, you get sort of a spectrum between companies where, okay, the technical salesperson really doesn't need to know a lot, or certainly not the most in the company, because, as you described, they're drawing on this engineer or this expert, right? And they have they're the quarterback, and they're bringing the other people in. It sounds like what you're describing is not that, right? That you found an opportunity to, okay, I already have this expertise. Why don't I step into the sales role and kind of cut out the middleman, in a sense?
Oh, absolutely. And I think, sales has matured over the years, right? And we see the various positions that really exist to support a business today. And I think that's different too, right? So if you looked at back then, you had very technical people and you had a bunch of salespeople, and kind of the merger of that, I didn't see as much as I see today. I tell anybody who's getting into sales all the time that our profession is just as good as a doctor, lawyers, any other profession. I mean, we do something that is the lifeblood of any business. And, we help bridge that gap between the technical conversation into a solution sale. And it's one of the most important things in business today, especially if your product's of that nature. And at Infinite, we do really amazing things like EMP filters for missile defense, all the way down to a connector. And, connectors are like, hey, here's a spec, I need a VisWar, and all the way to an EMP filter, which is, hey, I have a THAAD launcher, a Patriot launcher, and I need these immune characteristics on your filter to protect my system that essentially has got a fire at a moment's notice to knock a nuclear warhead out of the sky. So you can kind of see the level of how business is changed from a technical solutions, and really how as companies have diversified and bought a lot of businesses in, we've got to be able to support all of our customers at every level. And I think that's where some of the things that you're doing, very impressed by your program when I was out there, by the way, and seeing some of the next generation of what sales and technical sales looks like. And I think you're absolutely right. You have layers of where people can really build a career and find great success.
Yeah. Well, and so you started talking a little bit about infinite electronics. So tell us what that is, and I know there's a few moving parts to it. So maybe what it is in a broad sense, and then where you are specifically within that organization.
Yeah, so from a broad sense, we've got tons of connectivity solutions that range a little bit out of what you would typically think of connectivity. We can do everything from EMP, which is really about keeping the connectivity part of it, keeping the communication going, versus straight connectivity where you've got cables and wires. So we've got really a broad offering. We're a group of brands that have been brought together with unique solutions and products, but also we're able to integrate those together in packages as needed. We do stuff in the cellular industry, so telecom is a big market, military is a great market. We do a lot in energy, alternative energy, industrial automation. So our products really are applicable wherever there's communication. And so that opens us up into every market. Now, each of those markets have unique requirements, different requirements of uptime, reliability, performance. But really, for us, what we can do probably better than most people is the broad offering, and then able to take those offering and integrate them into a single solution, whether it's a box, a kit. We're doing some really interesting projects where they're doing backup internet. And so you've got, let's say, a big store company that might make cheeseburgers. I won't tell you who that is, but they essentially are looking for backup internet. And so they've got the regular communication, Ethernet, fiber coming to these stores. But if you lose that communication, internet's so critical. You can't process your orders. You can't run the drive-through. You can't send orders back to the back to make food. And for some of these restaurants, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars in lost revenue in a matter of hours, depending on what their busy time and where they are. So this specific customer has put backup internet on top of their roof. Essentially, it's connected wirelessly. So leveraging the carriers for wireless internet, they have backup. The neat thing is it's a radio, and we make everything on our radio. So we provide the surge protection, the cabling, many other solutions in a singular box with each radio, allowing them to execute without 10 things and trying to figure out, does this work with this? Will this have an issue? Who do I call if there's a problem? Do I call 10 people, or do I call my infinite person who can give me the complete solution and also support me technically? So that's kind of the value, but that's an example of some of the things that we can do.
Okay, that's a good. I think that's a good example of the problem that you would be solving, and I think certainly not a problem that would be top of mind for me, at least. Yeah, okay. At the end of the day, you're making sure people get their hamburgers, when they want them,
That's right.
which is not obviously connected to the electronic connectivity field. And so if you had to kind of boil it down, what is technical sales in your experience?
Yeah, I mean, I really go back to my earlier days, and depending on who you're talking to, from supply chain, engineering, product line management, and their level of experience with what they're trying to accomplish. I mean, ultimately, you're taking products and conveying that information at the right level of understanding to the customer. I think that's the key part of it is you have really technical people, right? And You've got people that require lower levels of, hey, I got this product. Can you cross it? Can you meet the performance? And I need something like this, right? All the way to, hey, I'm designing this, and I've got these specific gaps in my new product that I'm trying to develop. Help me with these performance parameter. So the varied level of support that you provide really is what technical sales today is, and that really goes back to what you said. You've got somebody who's got to go in and be the bridge to understand enough to possibly bring the next level of person or be able to offer a solution. And I think that's really what the value is. I'm passionate about the fact that customers look to companies like us to help solve a problem and make something better. I use that cheeseburger analogy, but we're dealing with wireless telecommunication companies, two-way radio companies that really are first responders, right? 911. So these connectivity stuff that we make, the electronic parts, the finished products, the subsystem stuff, it all keeps, those things in line with communication, performance, allows you to pick up your phone when you got an emergency, call somebody and know that somebody's going to pick up and send you an ambulance or police or first responders along the way to help you. And that's really where I think, technical people can really become valuable, is to help make those systems, those solutions and applications perform better than ever. And, today the switch in technology is much more violent. If you look at data center, if you look at any other industry today, communication, what doesn't use internet, right? Like what field doesn't use internet today? And what field doesn't use some way cellular service, right? So it's really critical. And the speeds, the amount of autonomous vehicles. I mean, you think about technology shifts from going from a few years ago, they were dealing with transceivers that were, less than 100 gig. Today, that technology between 400 gig, 800 gig, and even 800 gig to 1.6 gig solutions are happening like in 6-month windows with all the stuff with AI and the evolution. It's amazing. I mean, I think it's a fun time for, people to build their career in technical sales, just because there's just so much opportunity, so much learning that's happening, so much growth, and really a greater need for those kind of talents.
And so, what you're an electrical engineer in college. Does somebody need to be a double E to move into this role, or what's the knowledge, what's the skill set that would really allow somebody to succeed in this realm?
I mean, I think it's listening is number one. I think that general trait, whether you're in sales or technical sales, is just critical. Just listening. I think being organized, being a very good note taker, also being able to ask clarification questions. I also think people have to invest in themselves, right? Once you start with a company, you have to know enough to be dangerous. And that's really the way I like to describe it. You don't have to know enough to build it and design it, but you need to be able to use the lingo. And I really talk about sales today, the ecosystem of sales. Today, if you sell in data center, you're going to talk about uptime 24 by 7, know the industry organizations like, IEEEs, UL, NEC, if you're in the electrical bucket, looking at all of those industry organizations, standards, UL, IEC, those things, right? And then looking at really the terminology and lingo that happens. Trade shows, thought leadership events that you can attend. I think all of those things are really where your investment begins. So I think you can gain a lot without being a physicist or a design engineer. Now, I can help, design to a certain point, even myself, just because I haven't done it in so many years. The next level of engineers sit in most organizations ready to support them, or even product line managers. So I think that's what's different today. When I first started out, you didn't have as much of that. You really only had the design engineer. And,
Yeah.
Most of the organization was keep away from those guys because those guys are so busy designing our stuff. Only go to them as a last resort, right? Because they're busy doing stuff. And so I think that's what's different today. There's a lot of resources tons of technical information on YouTube. Companies are putting out information, you know, whatever industry you're looking at, whether it's oil and gas, industrial, be in that industry, understand the lingo and terminology, understand at the system level. You don't have to go all the way to the subsystem, but just understand the system level, at least what it is and how they use the jargon.
Okay. You described technical sales as communicating at the right level of complexity. How do you know what that right level of complexity is?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest things is, don't be outside yourself. If somebody says something you don't understand, you don't have to sit there and act like you know what it is. I think it's important for people to know where you're at, but let them know, hey, look, we've got the right level of people to support you. So I think it's your own skin. You have to be comfortable in your own skin. I also think initially when you start your career, I hope most companies do this, but there should be opportunities to do buddy calls, and that's really a on the job training in the field. And I encourage anybody that starts at a company, look, go through their training, do all the HR, get your laptop and all that other stuff, but network really well and ask them, hey, I'd love to do some calls with some of your senior people. That way I can sit in, see how they handle some of these questions, understand some of the systems, go see a few customers, see what their equipment, their network, their facilities look like, how they make the product. And that's really the best way to do it. I really wish more companies did that, where when they bring in technical salespeople, give them not just, you got the academic already. You're coming out of, a great college like Texas A&M, right? And you're coming out with all this knowledge base. And then when you get out of that knowledge base, what do you do with it is, how do I learn? What information do I need to invest in myself? And then you start with a company, and in the onboarding, you got to be your own advocate and say, look, I want to do this job really well. If you don't have a program where I can do some buddy calls with senior salespeople, some of your technical staff, how could I get that accomplished? I think that's really how you can really build your own comfort skin of where you can talk about something, where you can't, where you need to bring the right people in. I think it's all about learning what you can and can't do based on what you've invested in yourself.
Okay. Yeah, advocating for yourself. That seems like a very simple discussion to have. You probably get credit just for having that conversation, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
your boss would think, oh yeah, this okay. This person's thinking downstream. They're being very proactive. Um, yeah, the idea of mentorship certainly comes up a lot, and I think that's maybe another word we could plug into what you're describing, right? Can I see somebody? Can I let have an example of how this works really well? But then after I ride with them for a day, I have them in my phone. I have their email address, and I can continue to kind of go back to that well for knowledge and tips. And hey, I'm stuck. This
Yeah.
opportunity was moving forward, and it just stopped. And I need some ideas on how to reinvigorate it. And my experience has been that most folks, even busy folks, are eager to help out when they can.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, one variable, right, is people have changed over the years, but the relationship part is still the same, right? So I always tell salespeople and technical salespeople, you know, be focused on being a likable person. Like, you have to be able to sit with somebody and have a beer. So if you're with somebody you can't have a beer, it's really hard to, build any kind of rapport. So, be a likable person, be a person that listens. And really, more importantly than anything else for me in my career, it's just been networking. And I can still pick up the phone and call my old CEOs, three of them, in fact, and bounce ideas off them. And they have a vested interest in me because they know I'm passionate. That's the other thing. Like, sales, technical sales, even, at that even high technical level, product line management, right? There's a bridge in technical sales where you can be a product line management. You can grow your career there. I would tell you, you got to wake up every day and you got to be passionate. You got to be, focused on delivering something for your customer that means something to them. It's just like anything in life, right? If you help somebody on the street, you feel good about it. they gain some help from you. And and really sales is relationships. And I take it that simple level, just helping somebody doing community service. That feeling is the same feeling you should get with the right person who's stuck, who can't, their system doesn't work, or hey, they need something to deliver something new for their business. And being a part of that whole process, I mean, that alone's got to motivate you. I mean, I've done some great projects that range from surveying a president's house, doing drawings and providing surge protection for a retired president's home that was being designed, and all the way to the Yankees owner, where their home here had issues before Mr. Steinbrenner passed away, and they had all kinds of power quality issues. And I was able to go there and survey their house and help them, get their electrical system back the way that it should perform. And so, really, if you think about that complete ecosystem, right? Networking, relationship, helping a customer solve a problem, that kind of continues to build on itself. And the more people you have backing you, who have a vested interest in your success, the more successful you'll be.
Now, is there any strategy when it comes to networking? Is it, are there certain people you try to connect with? Is it just the more the merrier, connect with as many as possible? What's the right approach?
Yeah, I mean, I think you never know a person just by the initial conversation and where they wind up. I had, here's a great example. I interviewed with a company, a very large company. At that time, he was just a manager. And we had a great interview. I didn't get the job at the time, but we kept in touch. And just a year ago, he became CEO of a very large company. And so he reached out to me and said, "Hey, look, I'm restructuring my business. Would really love to see you in my organization." And we had kept in touch for 4 years since that interview many years ago. And so that was an example of really just building a little rapport on an interview, connecting with them on LinkedIn, and really getting an opportunity later. Now, at that time, I wasn't ready to make a change, but for him to pick up the phone and call me and say, "Hey, Jason, look, I think you'd be a great fit for this, chief revenue officer position to run our, sales and restructure everything." I mean, that's a real great compliment to me. But I look at every relationship as an opportunity. And I think that when you're thinking about sales, you want to be very targeted, because obviously you're trying to help get business. But I think whenever you have an opportunity to network, I would say there's not much you can walk away from. Now, you'll meet some people where you'll want to spend less time with, then you meet other people where you're like, this is the right person that's going to help me either help me with some sales opportunities, or potentially, you can help somebody too. That's the other way I look at it. You just never know. It's not always a one-way street, right? Anybody in my network reaches out to me for advice or for, hey, do you know anybody at this company that you can help me with? As long as they're not a competitor to me, I'm happy to help, right? I think it's a two-way street. I would tell you networking should be no limit, but it should be targeted on what your goals are currently. So if you're fresh and new in the industry and you're starting out, network with, key leadership people, network with, people that are going to help you in your career. I think as you get further in your career, start broadening out with more customers that help you from a sales perspective. And then as you kind of, hey, next stage of my career, what does that look like? Start thinking about, people that can help you get there, and think about how you can leverage those people. So I really think there is a strategy to it. But if you go to a trade show, you meet hundreds of people at a trade show. I would say take every opportunity to introduce yourself, pass a card out, learn about them, build enough of a rapport where you can call them back and follow up, and then keep them in your network. You never know when they'll be valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. Are there times where technical selling just isn't very technical?
Oh, absolutely. And really, it's the audience level of who you talk to. I mean, I've had supply chain people who are super knowledgeable about their products, what they're trying to do, what their engineers are trying to accomplish, all the way to where they're not as technical. And the products that they support are that broad too, right? They could be buying a screw, all the way to these complicated parts that's got to function in their equipment. So I think that there are broad areas of how you would look at that and say, this is a non-technical product, this is a technical product. And really there's commoditized products in the market, right? There's 30, 40 companies that make the same thing, connectors, some RF connectors. Unless you're looking at very specialty stuff with temperature, certain loss requirements, most connectors, if you think about the telecom industry, there's tons of people that make it. I think the biggest thing is thinking about quality and how you can still create value in it. Like if you look at our brand Passionate, very well recognized in the industry, hardly any failures on products, right? And it's got great value. That's what you want to sell. Even though it's a very commoditized product, you want to talk about the reliability of the product more than the technical features, because most of that's going to be a me too in some cases.
Okay. I wonder if I can get you to tell us about the best day in sales. The opportunity that felt the best to win.
Uh, I've been lucky. I've had a lot of them over my career, and I would say one of the most recent one was we were working with a tier one carrier, and they're doing fiber to the home, and they really had a lot of technical issues, coming into the deployment. And one of them was a product that we make called the transceiver. They typically get those from OEMs, and they really wanted more flexibility. They wanted something of high quality, good pricing, and really the engineer that we were talking to, a lot of pressure on him because this is a huge deployment. Verizon's charters, the Cox. You've got like a market full of AT&Ts. They're all in the industry, and they're all trying to provide the same solution. So for us, working with this tier one was essentially to help them compete and be able to deploy this quickly. So lead time, technical, testing and validation in network, all of that had to happen in a short time frame, and we had to make sure we're able to execute. So we executed all of this in a very short amount of time, and we got leadership within the tier ones to say, hey, look, you guys are great to work with. You're communicative, you deliver solutions. And part of what they were doing was keeping America connected, rural America. So getting internet coming out of the pandemic to kids who are homeschooled and trying to get internet there. So you feel like what makes me, think about a good sales experience is when it affects somebody that's just beyond a PO or just our business too. It really is bringing internet to homes that typically would not have it. Areas where you don't have as dense population, you don't have as many subscriptions to drive, trenching or getting services into these areas. So that's a great example of a feel-good story. And I'll tell you one more, which is all the missile defense stuff that we do. So I'm very passionate about our military and military sales we do. So we had a defense contractor, a very big one, if you can think of the top three, come to us and say, hey, look, we want to do EMP filters for this road of launchers that we're working on. And this is Reagan time. Reagan kind of developed this, right, in his presidency and said, hey, we're going to do missile defense, and kind of built out of it. And, you've heard all the Patriot stuff in the Middle East, and you hear all the launchers and what they do today. It's the most funded, probably most recognized program. And the neat thing about these systems were that they needed EMP protection. And we knew that this would protect warfighters, people in the field, and not just the big launchers, but smaller ones. And it was doing really something great for our country, but also protecting the warfighters who are out there with these systems, and being able to provide a solution that if an EMP pulse was radiated on these launchers, it would not damage the communication system that would cause a Patriot not to launch, right? And then doing something like destroy a ship like Zumwalt. There's about 3 of the Zumwalt ships that are EMP. As far as I know, it's the only EMP protected ship in the world. So being a part of that, where you're doing, things for the greater good, those launchers now are sold to other NATO countries to protect them from countries who might have aggressive nuclear warhead, attacking their borders. So if you look at a lot of the stuff that's happened recently, a lot of this equipment's used to protect a lot of people. So another example of something really neat, something really cool on the outcome side of it. You're doing some really good stuff.
Well, that's great. I think I really like what I do, and I think it's very important. But I try to never think that it's more important than it is.
Yeah,
That I think helping students get into good positions and working with organizations to help them make a little bit more money, and like this is all very good. But I had the opportunity this past year to sit on an awards committee for the College of Engineering here and evaluate people doing like real stuff, creating things that to my little pea brain appear indifferentiable from miracles. Sending things to space and artificial eyeballs, and I want I can show you how to ask better questions and make a few extra bucks. I'm cool too.
yeah.
But it's nice to see, yeah, I mean, you could describe your role as, oh, yeah, we work with connectors, we work with gadgets, Now the solutions are real,
Yeah.
with real implications for real people's outcomes. So that's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, the one thing about, technical sales, right, is that you just see so many neat things, right? And as long as you have the right support system around you to support whatever the customer needs, you're in a great place. But it's such a critical position today because it's the tip of the spear of where the salesperson might, you know, lose something where a technical person is being trained in academia today, which didn't exist. I mean, I think, if those were available back when I graduated a long, long time ago, but if those were available, I would jump at it today, knowing the 28 years that I've been in sales and technical sales. And I just think that today there's a broader opportunity for technical sales to sit in a place where it creates great value, opportunity for that person to see things they've never seen before. I mean, you know, first EMP thing I ever saw was Matrix. Like I never ever thought, that I'm going to be part of a company that's going to be designing filters to stop a pulse that we can't see that's man-made or from a nuclear warhead detonating high above the altitude, or helping companies do two-way radios to support that infrastructure so it doesn't get damaged from lightning or transients, so that that system works every time somebody picks up the phone, or helping a hospital where they've got redundancy in their systems for power, and there's a hospital surgical procedure going on and you lose power, what happens? Or you lose communication where they're communicating with an ambulance that's coming in with a person that could be me, my family member, anybody that I know that is getting into a place where they need help, and being prepared, and the doctors knowing that, hey, you've got a heart patient coming in. Like that's what should drive you, that's what should motivate you, I think. And when you can see the real outcomes of what you do, I think you just naturally become more passionate about it and you just invest in yourself. So I don't think technical sales, you come out first day and you're just like, hey, it's going to be all roses and sunshine and rainbows. It's really about what you make of yourself and what you do with these customers. And that outcome will drive people into the next level of knowledge. I mean, there's people that we have in our business, they don't really have a formal, engineering degree, but they have been with businesses for years and they've just learned, they know just as much as an engineer because they've got hands-on experience, they've got customer experience, or they worked in an industry. So I would tell you, from a technical place, there's a lot that people can do, and it's just a matter of getting your feet wet and just being prepared.
Now, I asked you about the days that felt like the best days. I think I also have to ask you, what about a day that you just feel like you got beat up and it was wasted time? And what does that look like?
So, I mean, technical sales, right? One of the things is it's like sometimes like a bad dating game, and it's you ask a lot of people out, and they end up saying no. And the reality of it is that there's only a percentage of people that will interact with you sometimes, and It's just sometimes the law of averages. Sometimes you get to a point where you got qualified leads and you're in there um, with a need. Sometimes you're trying to create a need. So I would tell you bad days are the ones where you call a bunch of people, you go visit people, and you get there and really nothing for you to do. There's just misunderstanding, or the person cancels on you. That's one of the worst things that can happen. I remember flying into Denver to meet with this engineer, and it was the only reason I was going. And it took forever to get the meeting, and I was excited because finally got him. Got there, waited in the lobby, and yeah, and he and I flew all the way there. Didn't have any other calls. I told my boss, "Hey, it's worth it to do it. This is important." And pretty much, I sat in the lobby for 20 minutes before they told me, "Hey, look, he's tied up and can't make it." So there's always benefits there too. I use that to kind of give him a guilt trip and say, "Hey, listen, I had flown out there, missed the opportunity to see you. Sucks for me. Hopefully it sucks for you." I'm thinking in my head was I'm writing this message to him like, hopefully we can make this up. I know you're busy, but look, obviously I'm, committed to working with you. And I flew all the way out there for that reason. Hopefully you can give me, uh, some time to talk about it. And it really did turn into that opportunity with him. It wasn't a big opportunity, but it was still an opportunity. At least pay for the ticket to get there and spend a day in Denver. So I would tell you it's those days that are tough. That's where I think you have to have resilience. You have to focus on understanding what the cycle of business is, and that there's a lot of no's sometimes before you get to yeses. The other thing that's always frustrating is military customers. You can design stuff and they'll pay you for it. Commercial side of it, there's really none of that. So you have to take some risk and design stuff. Now, it'd be great if you met with the customer technically and you're like, "Hey, I found this specific need." And then you take that information and take it to a couple of the customers, and like four customers are like, "Yeah, I'd love that." But if you got one alpha customer and you find this and you design it, and I've had that happen to me, and then you take it to them, they're like, "Oh, funding got cut or this happened." Those are bad days because you've obviously invested some money into a product that you're hoping to get an ROI on. So I think those are always tough. So I think technical sales, you'll be caught somewhere in the middle of that with a salesperson or yourself, or people back home that people back at the facility that say, "Hey, I designed this, where's the sales on it?" So those are rough days for sure.
So you mentioned having resilience, but is there anything specific that you do on those days, or say to yourself, or what can somebody do when they're having a bad day?
I think whiskey fixes everything. No, I'm joking. I think I think at the end of the
Oh, only
day,
half the things. Only half.
only
Yeah.
only half the things. So if the whiskey doesn't do it, I think really it's your purpose. Like for me, throughout my career, initially it was like paying off student debt. Next, it was helping my parents. Then I had children. So it's like, oh, somebody's got to help them with college and give them a head start in life, right? And so, and then as you get older, your parents, they have ailments and they have things that they may need help on. So along the way, I've been really blessed to be very grounded in what my purpose is. So if you know what your purpose is and what you're trying to accomplish and how many people you can help. So one of the things that we do here is, there's a organization here, part of our church, that feeds the homeless. And every Sunday you feed the homeless, you give them resources, you bring in veterans, organizations to help them get them cell phone, try to get them, really kind of back on the path of life. And you can't do those things if you don't make enough of a paycheck to be a contributor to these other things that are beyond just a job, a paycheck, a car, a house. It's all the things after those things that you need to live on that I really think matters. And so when you find passion in the things that you want to accomplish for yourself, your family, your community, that really, I think, is really what motivates you through the bad days. And I always kind of go back to grounding myself in, I was born in India. So you really don't know what a bad day is if you're not like in the gutter somewhere looking for food and you haven't eaten in days, which happens a lot. So if you go to certain parts of, I've been to, third world countries for work, and, you really see life come at you differently, right? And here, the worst case scenario, you can get a job that you might not like, but you can get a job. Other places, you cannot do that. Like there's not enough jobs in certain parts of a country where you can make an income. You're hustling, you're living in a very difficult place. So like you ground yourself in the opportunity, the ability to excel, wake up every day and make something better in how you do it. And I always think four parts, right? There's a professional side, there's a spiritual side, whatever that is, meditation, religion, whatever you think that is, right? There's a physical part, which is how you take care of yourself, because you got to make sure your body and you're doing those things that you need to make yourself go. And then your personal part, which is your family, the things that you do in your community, your friends, and you spend really the second most amount of your time at your work. And so it's got to be a place where it feeds into the number one, which is your family and friends, how you are physically. Like you do all of those things together, and then you ground yourself in those four things that keep you going. I think people find more than enough motivation. Like, any one of those things I hit, right? Think about where other people are in the world. Think about, the opportunity you've been given to write your own life, like your own career path even, right? And you look at all of those things and it makes the weight of everything else quite less. And it takes those bad days and makes them just a bad day, and you put it behind you, and you got to look for the next day, which is going to be a better day. And I think that's how you look at it.
Absolutely. All right. I think I have one last question for you, which is what are some books that everyone going into or in technical sales roles should read, and why?
Yeah, I would tell you there's a handful of books that I like, and there's a handful of them sitting here, but I don't know if there's one specific one I like. I think everything that I've read has given me something to learn from. What I'll tell you, what's interesting is LinkedIn Learning is pretty interesting to me. LinkedIn Learning, I don't know what the subscription is, but the subscription there, whatever it is, I think it's worth it. I think it's like $300 a year or something. You have some of the world experts talking about all kinds of topics from sales, and I think for sales, it's like being well rounded, right? Like one of the books that I liked is this one, Contact Center Management, and this is about how to manage a contact center. And this is by a great guy that I know, Brad Cleveland, who really started the organization for contact center and call centers. And he essentially built that. The other one, that recent one that I just started reading, is Fit for Growth, and this is something that our new CEO gave us. And it's not just about sales. I think that's one of the things that salespeople have to be careful of. It's to learn the business. It's to learn about operations. It's to learn about accounting. It's learning about every department and what they do, because I think that's how you find out how to make the business better and how to also position yourself when that technical sales opportunity comes in to help navigate the organization. A lot of times, technical sales and sales becomes that, essentially. Like, we're the quarterback between the customer, internal stakeholders, external organizations, entities, standards, all of those things. So I think it's, I recommend people learn as much knowledge as they can in sales, but I also really think it's about being very well rounded. And that's often lost.
No, that makes sense to me. I mean, and it's having that broader knowledge base is what puts you in a position to understand opportunities to create value, right? Like,
Right.
I've only been having this conversation because this is the conversation that we focused on training. But I see that there's this whole other conversation that I could be having with these folks that takes a little bit of expertise and experience to get to that point.
Absolutely. And you become more valuable to the business. That's the other thing, right? The
Mm.
more you know, the more valuable you are to a business. People are shocked that 28 years in sales, in a sales position, at the same company, acquisitions, mergers, all kinds of stuff happen, which is cool, but that's not normal for sales, right? You've got some level of churn that happens, but being able to stay in a place, I think that's been my recipe is, you know, all these things that we just talked about. It's just being well rounded in these things.
Perfect. Well, any final thoughts for anybody listening? The last thing you just wanted to get off your chest?
Wake up every day, live in gratitude, and start the day with I'm going to kick butt and finish the day off strong, no matter how it ended. And the good news is every day is a new opportunity, and that's really the way I think everybody should look at sales and technical sales.
Awesome. Well, that's great. I am going to click the stop button. That's it for this interview. I hope you got something valuable out of it. Of course, if you did, be sure to subscribe and rate this podcast on whatever app you use to listen. Also, share this with your colleagues and friends, and let's continue to have a deeper discussion on all things related to selling and sales leadership. See you next time in the Sales Lab.